Hi, I'm Gavin Hoey, and in this month's tutorial I'm going to show you how to change the weather from this lovely blue skied picture to something dark and rainy. Now I'm going to be using Photoshop elements for this tutorial, and you can follow the tutorial in the magazine as well. So if we're going to make this a little bit rainy, we better get rid of the blue sky. And to do that we need the layers palette. So that's F11 on your keyboard, just to bring up the layers palette. But I can't just delete the sky as it is at the moment, because we've got a background layer. And background layers don't have transparent pixels in, so if I want to put a sky underneath, I can't. But if I double click the little thumbnail there, I get the chance to change it. Call it layer 0, that's fine. Say OK to that. As you can see, it's not called background anymore, but more importantly it doesn't have a little padlock there, which means I can now have transparent pixels in this image. Let's move that out to the side. So I'm going to select the sky. This blue sky should be fairly easy to select using the magic wand tool. But if I try and select it, let's see what happens. Well, it makes a selection, but as you can see, it's got a tough job. This is a hard sky to select. It's got lots of little bits in between the trees. So let's undo that, Control and Z. If we try again, but this time we untick contiguous, let's see what happens this time round. There we go, it's made a much bigger selection. And look over here, you can see it's made lots of little tiny bits within the tree as well. With contiguous unticked, it'll go looking for the same coloured pixels all over the image. But it's missed a few bits. It's missed a bit down here, so we can add that in by holding Shift on the keyboard and click again. That'll make a better selection. And just have a quick look around and make sure there's no other bits that we've missed. That's pretty good. We just need to tidy the selection up a little bit before we go too far though. So we go to Select and Feather. This will soften the edge slightly so it's not so hard and severe. We don't need to do it very much, just 1 pixel should be fine. And then go back to Select, Modify and Expand. And again, 1 pixel on this. It'll just expand the selection just so we reduce the amount of colour fringing we're going to get. We're going to get some anyway, it's a fact of life, but we'll say OK to that just to try and minimise it. Then with everything ready to go, we can clear those pixels away, edit and clear. Now we can see we've got a little checkerboard pattern in the sky, and that indicates that there's no pixels there, we have transparent areas. Let's get rid of the selection, Control and D to deselect. Okay, let's bring in the stormy sky. I always like to take pictures of skies whenever I can because they come in so handy. So here's a stormy sky that we're now ready to add into the picture. Several ways you can do this. The easiest way to add it into the picture is to get the Move tool, click anywhere within the sky picture and drag it on to the castle picture. And when I let go, there we are, we can see that's now plonked it over the top, but not perfectly. We see we've got a little gap there. More importantly, I've still got my sky picture on the computer as well, so let's get rid of that because it's just taking up extra resources that we could really do with keeping. So let's move it around a little bit. Let's make sure it's actually covering the whole image like that. We can nudge it with the cursor keys to get it spot on. When you're happy, get back your layers palette back up again, and you can see that there's the sky completely covering the castle. So if I get the sky layer, click and drag it underneath the castle, that should swap the two around, and now we've got the castle looking like it's in front of the sky. Once you're happy with the result, get your layers palette again and merge visible just to flatten it down to a single layer. Now if this picture really was taken in the rain, it would look slightly different. The colours wouldn't be quite so saturated because you don't get so much bright light in the rain, of course. So to simulate that, let's go to Enhance, Adjust Colour and Hue Saturation. That'll allow us to make some changes to the amount of saturation and the colour within the image. But I'm going to just desaturate it a little bit. Let's bring the saturation down to around about 35%. That looks pretty good. We'll say OK to that. So that's just reduced the amount of brightness within the colour range. But talking of colour, of course the colours are going to be different as well. When it's a warm sunny day, things tend to be warmer colours. When it's cold and wet, things tend to be colder colours. That means we need to shift the colour scheme slightly more towards the blue end of the scale. And to do that in Elements, if we go to Enhance, Adjust Colour again, and we can go for the colour variations. Now this is quite a big box, so it kind of fills the screen, so let's bring it up so we can see pretty much everything there. And what we've got here is the chance to just adjust the colours slightly. Here's our before picture, and here's our after picture. As you can see, they look the same because we haven't done anything yet. If I go down here, I've got lots of choices for changing the colour scheme slightly. And you can get an idea of what they're going to do. Increase red, increase green, and increase blue. Now that's the one we want to go for. So if I click that, you'll see that my after picture looks slightly bluer. If I click it again, it looks bluer still. So that's pretty good. 2 clicks on increase blue, and we'll say OK to that. And that's given the whole image a much more of a bluey, cold feel. So now I think it's about time we actually made some rain. Let's get the layers palette back on screen again. And to make the rain, I'm going to make its own layer. So let's make a blank layer. There we are, there's a blank empty layer there. Nothing's happened to the picture, of course, until I fill it with colour. And to do that, we'll go to Edit and Fill with foreground colour. We've got black set as the foreground colour, and that's filled it with black. Lovely. Move that away again. So, to make some rain, first of all we need some raindrops, and we'll find those under the Filter menu, and then Noise, and Add Noise. Now that'll give a slightly sort of grainy look to the black. I want a very grainy look. Let's go right up to 400%, maximum we can do. Make sure you've got monochrome and Gaussian ticked. And we'll say OK to that. Now I'm going to make 2 types of rain, because rain doesn't come in a standard form. So if I go back to my layers and duplicate that layer, so I've got 2 sets of little rain drops. I'm going to switch the top set off and make sure I'm working on the bottom set. So these raindrops have got to move, they've got to look like they're falling through the air. And I'm going to do that again, another filter, Filter, Blur, and Motion Blur. That'll give my little raindrops some motion. And you can see straight away that as soon as I do, we get this kind of stripy effect, and you can start to see how this rain effect is going to build up. So let's increase the distance, the speed at which they're travelling, to around about 50 pixels. The angle at 40 degrees, yeah, I'm happy with that. And we'll say OK to that. That'll render that, just takes a second or two, but there we can see our streaky rain effects starting to come together. Back on the layers again, let's click the top layer to make that active, and let's make some rain with that layer too. So the same technique, Filter, Blur, and Motion Blur. But this time I'm going to have a slightly smaller distance, because rain doesn't all travel at the same speed. So let's make it about half of what it was before, about 25 pixels. And similarly I'm going to adjust the angle as well, about 35 degrees, because rain doesn't always come from the same angle as well, it tends to blow around slightly. So I've got some shorter, slightly more angled ones too. I'll say OK to that, and that's my second set of rain made. Now we need to find a way of merging those 2 layers together, and we do that by changing the blend mode. Currently set to normal, working on the top layer still. I'm going to change it to linear burn. That will give a much darker image and much more defined raindrops. You can also try colour burn if you want slightly bigger raindrops, but they look a little bit more snowy to me, I feel. So we'll go back to linear burn again. When you've got it right, merge those 2 layers down, so we've got just a single rain layer. And a good tip as well, to go back to your filter menu and just apply motion blur once again, just to smooth out those raindrops so they look like they're moving and they're not so pixelated. So now we need to see the castle again. We've got so much rain we can't see through it at all. And we change the blend mode to reveal the castle. So change from normal to screen, and the screen blend mode will make anything black within the layer transparent. So that should mean most of the layer becomes transparent, and we can actually see the castle again and still see the stripes of rain coming down as well. Now there's a couple of finishing things we can do just to give it a little bit more punch and a little bit more excitement. Firstly, the lighting's still a little bit flat and sunny. So I'm going to get my sky picture that we had right at the beginning and bring that back in again. Here we go. Because not only can we use it as a sky, but we can use it as a colour and toning method as well. So let's add that back into the picture. Same technique as before, with the move tool. Click and drag it onto the image, like that, and move it into position, like so. Close the original sky down, of course. It's, again, just taking up extra space. On the layers palette, you can see now I've got sky, rain, castle. So I need to change the order to rain, sky, castle. In other words, get the sky, move it into the middle. Straight away you can now see we've got rain coming off across the sky, which looks quite effective by itself. But if I change the blend mode of this sky here from normal to multiply, that should show the castle through again. But it makes it slightly dark and angry, so we'll just knock it back slightly on the opacity, around about 70-75%. That should give a more stormy lighting, but still keep the detail. And if you're not sure what it does, let's just switch it off. That was before, and that was after, and I think that just adds an extra bit of punch to the picture. Last thing I want to do is to add a little bit of lightning in the top corner here. If we've got a stormy sky, let's go mad, and let's say it's a thunderstorm. So I've got some lightning I've already made. There we go. And I can just add that into the picture using the same method as I did with the clouds there. Still got the move tool active. Click anywhere on the lightning and drag it in like that, and close the original picture down. Now, you might be noticing that this lightning perhaps isn't real lightning. No, this is lightning I've made within Photoshop. If you want to find out how to make it, watch the next part of this tutorial. But once you've made your lightning, again, same method as with the rain, change the blend mode for that layer down to screen to show through the image. Then all you need to do is just delete with the eraser anything where it goes over the top of the buildings, because we want to make it look, of course, as if it's behind the buildings. And there we go, that's my stormy wet picture completed.